Today on CityCast Philly, recently on a weekday afternoon, I picked my daughter up from school. We drove along 33rd Street and Cecil B. Moore Avenue in the Strawberry Mansion section of North Philly. And there was an automatic weapon being held by a guard standing at his post outside of the Sunoco gas station. I'm going to be honest, that gun scared me, but it's becoming more common to see Philly businesses hiring armed guards to protect their spaces. I'm talking to a local writer about the rise of private security. It's Monday, November 13th. I'm Trenae Nuri, and here's what Philly's talking about. Mensa Dean, you cover gun violence issues in Philadelphia as a staff writer for The Trace. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Mensa, I'm just going to get right to it. In a city that continues to suffer through gun violence, why are we seeing armed guards and not cops visibly carrying guns in our community?
Well, there are several reasons for that, I would say. One is that gun violence continues to be a major problem here and elsewhere. We see mass shootings almost weekly and daily shootings here in Philadelphia daily. So, with gun violence being what it is, it's not surprising that more businesses, even nonprofit entities, are hiring armed guards. The state has long allowed this. Act 235, it's called in Pennsylvania, gives individuals the right to work as armed security guards, watchmen, private investigators. Some businesses, they actually are they're open carrying, and you see these security guards with these big guns, these AR-style assault rifles at gas stations and cheesesteak restaurants. There have even been some instances at weddings and funerals and at churches and mosques and synagogues. So it's response to the crime. In addition, in Philadelphia, we're having a problem with finding enough people who want to be police officers. They have over 1,000 vacancies in the Philly PD currently. To be precise, last I checked, it was 1,013 vacancies. So that's a lot of people. Right. That's 1/6 of the police force is vacant. And so they just don't have enough people to man all the hot spots.
You just mentioned some of the businesses, restaurants, and religious centers. What have business owners told you is the reason why they're taking this approach into hiring private security?
Just this fear for themselves, for their customers. I was speaking to the president of a mosque in Northeast Philadelphia, and he says they got a death threat, and that's why they turned to private security. And just generally, when a store gets robbed at gunpoint, it hardly makes the news, and it happens. It's just very common in Philadelphia, but it's very traumatic, and it also hurts business because it gets around the neighborhood. People don't want to come back to that store. So business owners, it's a form of self-preservation. If you want to stay in business, you're going to have to step up your game when it comes to security.
Now, Mensa, what's been the response from people going to community fairs in West Philly or at their Jim's West Philly cheesesteak? What's been their response when they see private security armed guards?
Well, from the piece that I wrote in The Trace in late October on the rise of private security guards, I met people who were very pleased with the sight of armed guards and their big guns. In fact, I saw people taking pictures with the guards as if they were cartoon characters or mascots at Disney World or Disneyland, like taking a picture with Mickey Mouse or something. And they had expressed to me that they were happy that our guards were there for their safety. I had some voices in the piece from others, including within the private security industry, who raised concerns about image of people with big guns in places where, everyday places, and how that could be a recipe for disaster. But, as far as on the street level, I did not see people who were concerned.
Mensa, critics also say that there's a difference between a sworn police officer or state trooper versus a private security guard. And some argue that the training, or certification of private security or armed guards doesn't go far enough. So can you just talk about what's the difference?
Well, to become a private security guard under Act 235, you need 40 hours of training. That's basically a week's worth of work in the classroom, if you will, and at the range. Whereas to be a police officer in Philadelphia, the police academy lasts for more, typically 6 months, sometimes 6.5 months, in that range. So you're talking 1 week versus 6 months. I mean, police officers, whether they be in the city or a county, a township, state troopers, you name it, public officers get a lot more training than private security guards.
So how do people get certified as an armed guard in Pennsylvania?
Well, they have to go to a private school. The state police is the agency that oversees the program, and on their website, Pennsylvania State Police, they have a list of schools that are certified to teach people who want to get their Act 235 license, which allows them to work as private security. And so you go to one of those schools, you pass the classes like you would in any place of study, and you get your certificate.
Any barriers?
I believe you cannot get a license if you have a felony conviction, typical things. If you're known to be mentally ill, basically, if you can carry a gun, as a private citizen, you can get an Act 235 license to work as security.
What does the data say about just how big of a trend this has become with people getting this certification?
The number of people who are getting their certification to be private security guards in Philadelphia and in the state are up. In Philadelphia, it's up almost 10% since 2019.
Mm.
And in the state, it's up 6.7%. And that's people who are newly getting their licenses and also being those who are being recertified. That was 2022 versus 2019. And then nationally, the number of private security guards is roughly 1.3 million, versus about just under 800,000 public police officers. So it's a big business. There are more private guards and watchmen and detectives and than there are deputy sheriffs, state troopers, city police officers, county police officers, municipal cops. So it's a very big business, and it's growing. It's up like 30% in the last 10 years.
Hmm. Well, Mensa, because we see that the Philadelphia Police Department has struggled with hiring officers, and some officers who are working, they have to work extra. Could armed guards or private security officers actually help or relieve some of this burden?
That's what I have heard. I mean, in my reporting, I spoke to the former police union president, John McNesby, and he did say that they're feeling a need out there. While he's also concerned about their lack of training, he didn't trash them, and he realized that they are necessary. I spoke to a high-ranking police official, the second in command of the Philadelphia Police Department, Deputy Commissioner Frank Benor, and he also said, hey, listen, they're following the law, doing what they're supposed to be doing. So the people who you would think would be there might have an axe to grind or feel that their turf is being invaded. They didn't give that type of impression to me at all. Now, the guards I spoke to, they also spoke highly of their relationships with the police department and the officers who they interact with on an ongoing basis. So it seemed to me like they're on the same team. They are here under the law, doing their job, and the police are accepting of that.
You talked about just the growing trend of armed guards. What does it say about the state of public safety here in Philly? Is this a good thing that there is growth in the private security sector?
I think that you can look at that in more than one way. I mean, if someone needs something, they're going to, buy it or lease it or what have you, add it on to their staff. And so those who want to work in private security are there for that. Is it an indication that there's more crime? Probably so. I think that it's just we are coming off of the pandemic and all the social unrest that ensued simultaneous to the upending of life as we knew it. And so we are still experiencing unprecedented high levels of crime, gun violence, even though it is trickling downward, the number of victims. I think that as things calm down and as we go back to more of a normal patterns of normal rhythms of routine in life, I think we'll see less gun violence and probably less armed guards walking around.
All right, Mensa Dean, staff writer at The Trace, thanks so much for chatting with me on CityCast Philly.
Thank you so much for having me.
There's a link to Mensa's full story in the show notes. That's all for today here on CityCast Philly. Tell a friend about this episode. Rate the show. Leave us a review and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to sign up for our morning newsletter, Hey Philly, to learn more about what else Philly's talking about. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.